morning, everyone. Welcome to my talk, Roll a Nat 20 with mSCP. Oh, the green light. Oh, I don't see. There it is. Now I can say, wait, I'll go back. Welcome to my talk, Roll a Natural 20 with mSCP. My name is John Mahlman. I am a platform lead for Leidos. We're a defense contractor based out of Western Virginia. I'm also a Mahlman Foundation board member as of this year, and I will be your dungeon master for the day. A few things. I do have mSCP stickers up here, so afterward you can come get them. But I have a gift for everybody in attendance. This is a bag of D20. If you don't want one, you don't have to take it, but I would like everybody to take a die. Please be quiet. Don't roll them on the table. I know this is a hard ask for a lot of people, because it is for me. But take one, and we'll play a little tiny game at the end. So let's take one, pass it on, and if you don't want one, that's okay. But there are plenty of dice in there for everybody in here. So let me set the stage for a moment with the session 0. Now, I also want to clarify a few things. How many of you here are tabletop people? Unsurprising. Great. For those of you that aren't, I will be using some tabletop gaming terms, tabletop role-playing game terms, Dungeons & Dragons type things. You don't need to know those terms. I will always back everything up with a generalized explanation, so don't worry about that. So if you're not a gamer, awesome. If you are a gamer, I'm also apologizing to you because some of my gaming references are bad. And I didn't want to add too many of them because I really didn't want to get too far into the weeds with them. But also, there's some in here that might be a bad hot take, and I don't want any hate mail afterward. But this is one of those gaming references. A session 0 is a pre-game session. So thus, our agenda for today will cover game mechanics, pre-made character, which is picking our baseline, rolling our own character, playing session 1, and then roll initiative. And of course, as every game should have a post-game discussion. You can see, by the way, I made a character sheet here for CIS Level 2 benchmark. And for some reason, the mSCP is a beholder that is attacking the 171 Revision 3. So, game mechanics. What are we going to talk about today? So we're going to talk about 2 pieces of software. 1 piece of software, 1 code. So we have Jamf Compliance Editor, which is the one with the circle around, or the icon around it, essentially. And then you have the shield, which is the mSCP, which is our project. So let's talk about the mSCP. This is our foundational rule set for the game. It is an open source framework. It is used to accelerate adoption of macOS and guidance in organizations. And it is a good way for us to create control settings, a unified approach for these settings. It is vendor agnostic and contains several baselines already built into it, which we'll get into later in our pre-made characters. But yes, I am calling this our foundational rule set of the entire system. I have other nerdy thoughts that I'll be mentioning later. This QR code will bring you to that Git page there. I will also have all these slides up on a Git. At the end, I'll show some resources, and we'll go over that. So, what is mSCP? Well, it started as a joint effort between some individuals from NASA, NIST, Los Alamos, and a couple other places, and then kind of molded into more, where some organizations, Jamf and my company, Leidos, got involved with it. And we started adding more things to it, and it kind of just exploded from there. So this is not only cross-government, it crosses government and commercial platforms. These are some of the badges for the baselines and benchmarks that are built into it. If you know these badges, I'm sorry. So, what tools do you need for the macOS Security Compliance Project? Well, 3 tools. This is it. You need Git, you need Python, and you need Ruby. Now, when I say what do you need, when you need these, you only need these, 1, if you're using the code from the Git page. So you don't need it for JCE, for Jamf Compliance Editor, excuse me. And 2, you do not need these on your endpoints. You only need these on the machine that you're building your scripts and your configurations on. So I will just make sure everybody's aware. These do not need to be on your endpoints. Ruby's already included, but you do not need to install Python and Git on your entire fleet to have mSCP working. So let's see. I'm going to give an extremely fast explanation of how it works. Okay. So you take your mSCP guidance that you've created on your admin computer, which is this one here. You then have your MDM, and then you have your fleet of machines down here. You create your guidance create config profiles and scripts. You drop it into your MDM, and then poof, it goes into your environment. And when I say it's very fast explanation, that is a very fast explanation. Because I had a workshop last year that was a full day just covering this. So when the script gets run on your fleet, it does a whole bunch of things, but in a sense, it will drop what's called an audit file. So in here, you see library preferences org.cis_level1.audit. This contains all of your rules that you have in there and a qualifier called finding 0 or finding 1. Right there. So finding 0 means it's not found. Finding 1 means it's a finding, means that something is wrong there. And that's what that means. Very simple. So next, we have Jamf Compliance Editor, or what I'm going to call JCE. This, I say, it's our virtual tabletop program. So it's similar to Foundry or something like that, if you're used to any of those systems. It is a GUI that was developed by Jamf. It can be used with any MDM. So don't be fooled because it's made by Jamf and it has a big Jamf upload to Jamf button. It will work for any vendor. You can't upload to any other vendor. You can create all your guidance. It's a very nice GUI for them to do it. If you are a Jamf customer, there is a nice little button that we'll be using that you just hit the button and it goes woo right up to your MDM. No command line experience necessary. All point and click. Very well documented too. So, and there's no prereqs to install. So you don't need Python. You don't need Ruby. You don't need Git. We will be focusing on this today because this, I believe, is the one that everybody loves using. It is the easiest way to get into the mSCP. This is kind of like 5e, essentially. And if you're using the mSCP, that's more like, who here is a Pathfinder fan? Why? 1E or 2E? Okay, that's fine. Pathfinder, the joke is it's called Math Finder because there's a lot of math involved. Anyway. And I'm bad at math, by the way. So we're going to look at a pre-made character. I was told not to do live demos, but I don't listen to people all the time. So I'm going to do a live demo. So let's see if I could do this without breaking anything. Yeah, I can do this without breaking things. All right, hi, look, there's a virtual machine. There you can see it, good, excellent. All right, I'm going to load up JC. I downloaded this from Jamf's website from that QR code you saw. Again, it's free. It's not behind a paywall. It is not open source, but it is free. I'm going to launch it, sign away everything to Jamf here. It does just say, though, that it just, comes with no warranty, of course. So this is JC. This is a very simple UI to start with. Down here, you'll notice there are two things. We have macOS and iPadOS and iOS. So yes, the JC and yes, the mSCP can do iPadOS and iOS. There's a little hacky way around to do Vision Pro. Maybe talk to me afterward if you're interested in that. Yeah, so we're not going to be covering iOS and iPadOS. We're sticking with macOS because that's what we care about right now. So we have two options: create existing project or create a new one, or excuse me, open existing project and create a new one. So we're going to create a new project. Now right here, it asked which security compliance project branch are we going to use. They look familiar. They're OSs. So the first rule of mSCP is everybody should talk about it. The second rule, though, is never work off main. So if you're using the Git code, do not work off the main branch. It is not recommended. Use your operating system branch. So you see we have one for every operating system here that is in the mSCP. I will suggest that you only work with the first two, and for some reason, look at that, my mouse is not clicking in here. That's kind of fun. This is why we don't do live demos. So I'm using arrows. So we're going to do Sonoma. We'll click Create, ask where to save it. I'm just going to use the Documents folder and save it there. Awesome. So next, it's asking us for a security benchmark. We have a whole bunch built into this. This is where you select your class of your character. That's really what it is. mSCP supports a good deal out of the box. There is an all rules here. For some reason, again, my mouse is not working. Don't use all rules. Because if you do and you push it to a Mac, you will make your Mac worthless and you will regret playing the game, and just like a Ranger in 5e. So just make a fighter and the party will thank you. Sorry if I went off a tangent there. But we're going to select CIS level 2, which is the fighter of the benchmarks because it's popular and the most versatile and very forgiving. Boom. There we go. So we now have our rules. It just pulled that from Git without me doing any coding, anything. So what you can see here, we have sections broken down on the left here. Is it left on for you? Well, yeah, whatever. You see it over here. How this is broken down, these are from the act. This is broken down from within the project. So we have all sections, which is just encompasses everything. Quick breakdown. Auditing covers your open BSM settings, so that's audit D. Authentication, which is not in here, you might notice, that's smart card settings. So if you do not have the, well, if you have the luck to not work with smart cards, good. But CIS Level 2 does not work with smart cards, so you don't see it. We have iCloud, which is iCloud, Apple Cloud Services, and Apple IDs, or excuse me, Apple accounts. Mac OS, which covers rules that are not defined in any of the other categories. It's just kind of our, here's where everything else goes. Password policy is easy enough. Supplemental contains additional information about the guidance that's provided by baseline. So if we look in there, there's some things that like are manual controls. So CIS has manual controls that essentially tell you, hey, go audit these if you're setting them. Kind of a little weird how it works, but this includes certain oh, there it is. I'm sorry. There it is. Documentation. So it's audit settings. Audit your, password policy supplemental gives you, little information about how to do it. And then your system settings are anything that's defined in the system settings application. So we're using a pre-made. We selected our class already, our fighter here, our level 2 CIS benchmark. And we're going to click this button down here. It says create guidance. Little wheel goes. It's creating guidance. It's doing a whole bunch of scripts on the back end that you're not looking at, which is good. It's going to take a couple seconds on a VM, apparently. Also, we have a lot of rules in here. There you go. Actually, that is a good way to do it. So here, I can open that up if you want. Documents. There you go. Not for each one. So actually, we don't even need to do that. There we go. It finished. Look at that. The guidance has been created at whatever directory that is. And then I can either save settings. If I save settings, that is saving the JCE settings to a JCE file that I can bring back later. We made no changes, so I don't care about that. So I'm just going to hit View Project. And now I have this. Let me see if I can change the view to something better. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Ooh. Keyboard shortcuts are great. All right. Let's take a look at what we have in here. We've got a lot of files, right? So we have an ADOC, an HTML, a PDF, and an Excel file. These are our documentation for what we just built. Like I'll just do a quick open of the PDF here. And you can see it literally is just a document of all of our rules. And you can click on the thing, and it'll take you to a rule. And ooh, you can see all the stuff, and you can see the mappings for it. That's great. It also has an HTML doc, which does the same thing. An ADOC if you use ASCII docs. ADOCs are pretty cool if you need something a little more portable, I guess. An Excel file with all of your audit settings in there. But there's a couple other things in here that we really want to get into. The most important one, the shell script. So I don't have any coding software on this VM right now. I have nothing on it. But you can see it is just what it says it is. It is a compliance shell script that has many, 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 many thousands of lines of code in it. This was all created for you before your eyes, magically. This was me making my spell checks. This basically has most of the fixes for the benchmark and all the checks. Now, when I say most of the fixes, this script, if it comes across something that is set by a configuration profile, it just checks to see if the setting is set. And then it won't fix it because it's expecting a configuration profile. So where do those configuration profiles come from? Well, down here there's a mobile configs folder, which has preferences and unsigned. Neat. So we'll go into the unsigned, and look at that. There's a whole bunch of mobile configs in here that were created for us. These are all unsigned mobile configs that you could install on your machines. You can see how they're named as, they're basically named after the domain that they're changing. Again, I don't have code on me to open it up, but I will probably I'll probably jump over to back to the slides later if I need to show a little example. So we also have preferences. So what if you can't upload a mobile config, or if you want to do something else with them? Well, there's your plist file with your preferences in it, and they're all named the same way. So this is the com.apple.application.plist, and that has all of your com.apple.application plist stuff. Neat. So these are really useful if you wanted to manually add them to your MDM, or if you wanted to make I don't know, custom applications in Jamf, but you might not have to do that because there's going to be that magic button later that we'll take a look at. We have this Jamf Pro folder. Notice I'm skipping around a little bit. This folder gets created by the JCE. This is not something that gets created by mSCP. This is the only one that does that. What is in here? Well, we got a couple files in here. You see there's shell scripts, there's XML files, and then there's this JSON file. So the shell script is an extension attribute. We have some extension attributes in here. We have, I think, 4 of them, and then there's an XML file. So I don't know if everybody here is aware of how Jamf works. Is if you can upload a script with an XML file, and it'll include all the things like the parameter names, like the notes for the parameters, and you can add the information about like the description and when it was added. That's what this is for. And then you have this JSON file. We're going to come back to this one. But if you're a Jamf, it's ugly, right? But if you're a Jamf customer and you know JSON files are used for schemas, there's your hint. I just told you what it was. And then we have this preferences folder. We're not going to talk much about this one today, but the preferences folder, this is another plist file for that audit, and everything in there you can see it has an audit name, has the key, and then it says key exempt false. And every rule has that. This is where you set your exclusions. Again, we're going to go over this later. I just wanted to show you that you can do this. We're not going to touch this file, but if you have an MDM that does not use JSON schema, so anything other than Jamf, this will be useful. All right. So that's our project folder. That's everything in there. Now, if everybody made a perception check and they wanted to figure out where the hell this was, I could show you that. So I'm going to now change the view, and you might have guessed it. It's in this build folder. Well, you probably didn't guess it if you don't know the project. But it is in a build folder, which is in that folder that we created by using mSCP when we saved it. What is all this stuff in the folder? That's just the Git code that it pulled down. That's all it is. There's nothing different about it. It's all just the Git code. And when you build a baseline, everything gets put in the build folder within the name of it. And everything is nice and organized. So magic, you are technically using the Git. Again, it's all an illusion. Alrighty, so let's see what we got here. I'm going to go back to my slides because I've done that part of the live demo. We're going to roll our own character. You've used the pre-made now. You've learned the system a little bit, and you've seen what a character can look like. So let's make you roll your own. So this is kind of what we're going to do. We're going to customize our benchmark. That's what rolling our own character is. We're going to remove some rules and from the check and fix. We're going to alter some things with what are called ODVs, or organizational defined values. We're going to change some checks based on your organizational tools. Now, we might not do that live here because that can get into the weeds, but I can go over some of it. And then we're going to change some verbiage on the descriptions. So this is where the slides continue. I think I can do better than this. We'll try to do another live demo here. All right, so let's do something fun first. So before we make our baseline, before we customize it ourselves, we want to make sure that we know that whoever's looking at this and whoever gets this documentation later knows that we worked on it. All right. So first, let me go get an image. You can tell I prepared for this. I didn't. No, I totally did. I'm just changing everything by doing a live demo, which I didn't do in my entire, I've never done. All right, so we're in Jamf Compliance Editor, and we want to make sure that we change our settings so everybody knows that we did this. So I'm going to go to the Jamf Compliance Editor settings, and oh my goodness, the button doesn't work. Cool. I'm going to restart the VM, and I'm going to actually go back to the slides and do this. Whoop. All right. This is what happens when you do live demos, so don't do live demos. So I go to Settings, and I get this window here. So this window here is now asking for the authors and a custom banner. Wow, cool. What's that? Command comma. Oh, yes, I can see it right there now. Thank you, though. Pro tip, keyboard shortcuts. So I'm going to add the authors in here. So Percy and Sophie are going to be working on this. I'm going to add the D&D logo, and I'm going to hit the checkbox that says Use Banner to make sure that we use that banner. So again, this is going to go in your documentation. It's not going to go in your script. It's not going to go in your config profiles. It's just going in your documentation. All right, I'm going to see if we can go back to that VM really quick. And if it fails this time, I'm just sticking to the slides, because I don't want to keep everybody here watching me futz about with Virtual Buddy, because that sucks. Hey, look at that. It works. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to say I'm John, and I work for Leidos. Not as cool as Sophie and Percy over there. Take this, drag it and drop it, use banner. I could add another one in here. Fine. Sophie Lee. Okay. And she works for D20. Any Dimension 20 fans out there? No. Okay. That's okay. Guess I'm the only one. All righty. So now we have that in there. So let's customize it. Let's remove some rules. This is the easiest part. This is so easy because you have these checkboxes here next to all your rules. Go zoom tight. I'm going to go to Mac OS, and I'm going to remove some rules here because we're going to be a little bit lenient on some of our stuff. So I'm going to remove disable airdrop, and by remove I mean uncheck the box. And then we have these hibernate mode keys down here. I use this in all of my examples, by the way. And thankfully, in the CIS benchmark 1.1 for Sonoma, most of them are gone. So we finally won. Thank you, Jim. I'm removing all the hibernate mode settings because they are bad. And if you have to do them, I apologize. Now note, when I uncheck them, you see there's a little M next to the rule. That M denotes that that rule was modified in some way. Anyway, it doesn't matter how it was modified, just some way. By us removing them, it was obviously modified. So now I'm going to hit Create Guidance. So what I'm being asked now, enter a name for your tailored benchmark, or press Enter for the default value of CIS Level 2. Well, this is not a default benchmark anymore. This is now a tailored benchmark. So I'm going to say this is PSU 2024, CIS 2, live. So I'm giving my benchmark a name. So you would use this as your organization's name. So my organization, this would be Leidos CIS Level 2 Sonoma. That would be my benchmark name. Or you can name it something very generic, Leidos CIS 2, and you can name all of yours the same way across all of your OSs. I don't want to get too into the weeds on that, but that can get complicated. So just be warned that when you name it, it also makes that name go for everything in your audit files, your scripts, preferences. So just be cautious about that. So again, we hit the button, create guidance. It created it. There we go. Guidance has been created. We're going to view the project again. Look at that. So now, in that build folder, we now have this CIS Level 2 live, right? And there's the same documentation I had before, but I'll open the HTML doc for now since we looked at the PDF already. Ooh, look at that. I got an icon, or a logo. And you can see in here, it's the name of my configuration, tailored from CIS Level 2, so it tells you what your base was. Tells you which guidance you're actually using, which is the Sonoma Guidance 2.0. And the date that was released. Awesome. So let's use our table of contents here. We'll go to authors. Look at that. It now says security configuration tailored by, not authored by, tailored by John and Sophie Lee. The authors are below. So that's Ed, Ron, and Alan. You didn't write this benchmark. You just tailored a benchmark that's already there. So that's what it's telling you. So this is really good. So if you hand this off to a colleague or your auditing team, they know that this is the CS baseline, and John and Sophie Lee are responsible for it, or for at least the creation of this. Now, what's cool about this, I don't know if anybody noticed how big this file is. Okay, it's giant. When you're doing this documentation, how many pages is this? Let's see, 116 pages. All right. When you're doing this documentation and you give it to your leadership or your management, don't tell them you used mSCP. Tell them you slaved over this. You wrote a script to do things, and you're going to make sure that it works. Because it shows that you are smart, and you know that you can work the system. Managers listening, that you didn't hear that from me. And again, they're in that folder there. Cool. So we could take a look at some differences to make sure that I'm not lying to you. Would I lie to you? I don't know. Probably not. I'm going to go into the documentation here. Go into our build folder. All right, so let me switch them around. It might make it easier for everybody, or me, I don't know. So on the one side, we have CIS level 2, our pre-built character, and on the other side, we have our custom one, 2024. Sorry for the difference in look there. There we go. That looks much better. Cool. Let's see what changed, right? So we're going to go into our mobile configs. We're going to go into preferences for both of them. Well, there's one missing on that one, right? So which one is missing? So we're going to look through it. It was airdrop. Or no, excuse me. It was boop, boop, boop. Where is it? It's airdrop. And I can't find it. See, this is why live demos are bad. Excuse me? Hibernate. Well, one second. I have a different one. It's not going to work. All right, I'm going back to the slides because this is not going to work as well. I know I can. But this is easier to see, right? Look, I have circles. So right there, MDNS responder in the pre-made is there on this one. So what I actually did was remove, I think I've just disabled Bonjour. And on the other side, it's not there. If we look at a mobile config file, right? So we have our tailored one over here and our pre-made on the other side. Airdrop is in one of them, false, which is funny. Allow airdrop false. And on the other side, it's not there because we tailored it. It's missing. It's gone. Okay. Documentation, you already saw this, right? There's the difference. There's your PDF. Cool. There's your authors. You can see I used much longer names there. Percival Frederick Trine von Musikowski DeRollo III. And then our pre-made and our tailored is missing hibernate mode settings. Thank God. I want those to go away, and they did. Cool. So I'm going to stick to the slides for now because I don't feel like making everybody wait while I faff about. So I'm going to update some rules and add some ODVs, organizational defined. Yes. I have to throw this. Oh, it's not on yet. Okay.
Okay. Is there any way to generate a diff of how your tailored is different from the baseline and see that easily?
It's a good question. The question was, if people that didn't hear it, is there a way to create a diff of how it's versus pre-made versus yours? There is no way to do it right now. Like, there is no actual flag for that. It would just be kind of a look into documentation and see. So, yeah. Jamie has his hand up.
You can compare the Excel spreadsheets.
You can do that.
Yeah,
you can compare Excel spreadsheets. So, okay. So we want to change some rules. We don't want to remove them. We need to change them for our needs, okay? So I'm going to change some rules here. I'm going to search for login in my handy-dandy search window up there. And then there's some rules in here that are literally designed with these in mind. Because there are checks that no one will pass unless you update the ODVs. So we search for login. Okay. So we want to update these two items here. This is display login window, or the display banner at login window, and then the display login window custom message. So one of them is the pop-up, the EULA that comes up, and then the other one is the little text at the bottom. They have default values that no org is going to meet, so we want to change those. So if I click on that one rule, we now have an edit pane, the rule details. So the rule details contain everything in there, from the ID to how the check is done to the results and fix. And then you can also edit references. So you can see in here the ODV, Organizational Defined Value, if you hit the show button. It says Center for Internet Security Test Message. That's useful. I don't think anybody's going to pass that one. So we want to edit this. So I'm going to click on the edit button up here. And now we have an editable field. So I'm going to start making my edit. So I click in there and I start making an edit and I get stopped immediately by this pop-up. And it says customizing the ODV value is not recommended for CIS benchmark level 2. And I get one option, okay. I mean, the checkbox too. You'll get used to this. So this is telling you that you are editing an already established benchmark. So CIS level 2, CIS level 1, and several others are benchmarks, not baselines. A baseline provides a starting point for your organization to get, or to secure your settings, and you have to go through a control selection process to make sure that you're meeting those specific settings. So it might say something like encrypt all media, you know? Well, that's very general, right? But the rule for CS would be enable file vault, and it's still referencing that. Benchmarks will literally have those controls built in, and they will have the organizational defined values recommended by the author of the benchmark. So this one has a recommended one of test message. It's not recommended, it's just there as an example. But there are some that have recommendations, and we will get into one of those. So for now, we're going to click OK because we know what we're doing, sort of. I'm going to add some text here, and in here I'm just putting, you know, by the using this computer, you agree to open gaming license because that totally makes sense. But I have a little sentence at the end that says, make sure you have your dice ready. And by the way, if everybody did not get the dice, there's a dice bag rolling around somewhere. I will hand those out and we'll play the little game at the end again. Reminder. I'm going to hit done. And we're going to go to the next rule. So I have a little video for that one. Look at that. I'm going to click 2.10.3. I'm going to hit edit. I'm going to make my edit. And the only thing you'll notice in here is it's one sentence. I did not include two. I'm just doing that so I could differentiate it when I show you the examples. And I'm going to hit done. Easy, right? I just made changes to rules without having to do any code or going into any text editor except for that little tiny box. And this is what it looks like. So there's my com.apple login window mobile config. Pretty simple. This doesn't look simple. This is our compliance script. It's a wall of text that, wow, you really can't see with the light, can you? That's okay, though, but I assure you the text is there. It is highlighted for you. That right there is the full check and fix for the rule for the OS policy login and window banner, essentially. It'll basically create the document for you if you don't have it. Neat. And just for, you know, some flavor, here's the CIS one. There's the text. And I don't know if everybody noticed, it shows you the remediation. It shows you, what's running to make sure that this is in place. It's also showing you the check that is in place. So when your auditors go, how are you doing this? Well, it's right there. Look in the documentation. All right. What about other changes? Well, that's just as simple. Certain ones can get really complicated. Things like changing what you're checking and changing how you get the result in the fix. So sometimes you want to, so a good example is if you're saying we need to enable a firewall, and the default one in here is enable the macOS firewall, the application firewall. Most organizations that are using third-party firewalls are not going to do that. So you might want to be like, all right, enable CrowdStrike, and then you rename it, you add the discussion point, and then you add the check, however the check works to check if CrowdStrike is working. And you would do that, and that's where things can get really complicated. I'm not getting that into the weeds today because we don't have that much time. So let's see. We're going to look at some password policies. Everybody likes password policies. First one here is the limit consecutive failed login attempts. Now you see next to it, it says limit consecutive failed login attempts to $ODV. That's a variable. That's our organizational defined variable. And you'll have to forgive me because my notes are on one thing and everything else is on the other. So I'm going to click, so you can see the info here. So in the bottom there, you see ODV 5. That is the recommended one by the CS benchmark, 5. And then you have your discussion up there as to why that is. So I'm going to edit this because I don't like 5. I'm a little nicer, kind of. I'm going to change it to 10. But why am I changing it to 10? I have to provide a reason to someone. Why am I going to change this to 10? So I put a little summary in there. I said, we allow a higher number of failures because we have more strict password standards, and our users are more prone to error. Because when we set ours to 5, we get lockouts all the time because we have a very long password policy. So there you go. There's my change. Now, the one thing that's interesting, you can see circled in there is the $ODV. So I don't even have to change the number in the description. It will automatically pull that variable. So if you want to reference that variable in your discussion point in the ODV, you can, or in the discussion point, if you want to reference the ODV in the discussion, you can do that very easily. All right. So we're going to click done, and we finished that one. All right. Now it's time to play our first session. We finished our session 0. You all have your characters. You have your dice. All right. What we're going to do is put this into Jamf. That's what I mean by playing your first session. So the first thing we're going to do is configure the API. So since we are focusing on Jamf, I just want to remind everybody that this is going to be focusing on all of the Jamf API stuff. If you are not using Jamf, I apologize, I do not have that for you. But we can talk a little bit later. At the end, I might have something for you if you don't have any MDM or any good MDM that can do certain things in Tune. So the top item here is from the JCE documentation. It just shows the required permissions for using the uploading. The JCE documentation is really good. And the team that manages that, or the people that manage that, are really good too. If anybody needs help with JCE, there is a JCE channel in Slack. There is also a macOS Security Compliance Project channel. It is just called macOS Security Compliance, though. It doesn't have project at the end, which gets people very confused because they just think it's all about security, which it is. But macOS Security Compliance is the channel in there if you're interested in talking with us or anybody else that manages the products or people that are using it. The bottom here, wow, it's really hard to see. Sorry, I chose darken mode, is your API roles and client settings. So this is the JCE privileges that are needed. If you're not using the API roles and clients in Jamf, you should really consider switching to that instead of using basic auth. It's just better. So the first one we created was the role for our, so just go back really quick. Our role is our JCE, Jamf compliance editor is the role. And now we're going to create a client or a user. In this case, I just called it PSU 2024 demo. I gave it the role, Jamf compliance editor. I gave the access token. And then I have a client ID here that was generated. But I also have to generate a secret, so our password essentially, right? Because we're going to need this information to put into JCE when we're done. I'm going to hit generate client secret, and it will give me this. It is not valid anymore. I'm going to copy the client credentials to the clipboard and save it somewhere because you can't see this again. It's a secret. But if you need to generate a new one, that's all. If you need to view it again, you'll just generate a new one. So copy that somewhere, save it, and you're good. So let's do something. Get this data in there. So I'm going to hit this button here. There's a button at the bottom that says Jamf Pro Upload. My head's in the way. There we go. All right, we click that, and it leads us to uploading all the things, actively doing something that is not just clicking around little buttons. So when you click Upload, you are given the Upload to Jamf dialog. So it's asking for some requested information. So you're going to enter your server URL, your client ID, and your secret, the items that we just received. I like saving the credentials because I don't want to lose that stuff. You can turn off the API role and just use basic. Again, I don't recommend it. And at the top, it says display name. That is just the display name of your server. So if you have multiple servers, you can give a different display name, or multiple accounts, if you will. Now, one thing you also notice is you have checkboxes for all the upload items. You can upload whatever you want granularly. So if you only change one thing, if you're working on something and you're like, oh, I only changed the script, you can just upload the script. You don't have to upload everything. You could also upload a small amount of things to test. Really easy. So let's see what that looks like. So I'd like everybody to know, I used iMovie, okay, for the first time because I've never used iMovie. I used to use Final Cut, but I still was so confused with iMovie to edit these, so I hope you appreciate it. To speed them up. They're not that fast. All right. So this is our Jamf Pro server with no config profiles. I'm in here. I'm going to hit Create Guidance. I'm giving it a name. It's going to create that guidance there. Wait for it to finish. Guidance has been created. We've seen this a couple times already. I close it. I hit Jamf Pro Upload. There's all my info. I'm now making sure that everything is selected. I'm going to hit Continue. Now you see the little wheel. That means it's uploading. Neat. Now, we're done. But we got this prompt that says, the custom JSON schema must manually be uploaded via Jamf Pro. That sounds weird, right? We just uploaded everything. Well, Jamf users might know you can't upload custom JSON schema. You have to manually put that in, as this says. Remember that JSON we looked at before in the Jamf Pro folder? That JSON schema is the JSON schema it's talking about. For now, we're going to go back to that at the end. But for now, we're going to skip this. So I'm just going to hit OK. And, all right. I hit OK. We'll go back to our Jamf Pro server. Ooh, really hard to see on this screen. There's our configuration profiles. They're all named. We're going to go to computer management and scripts. There's our script. It's uploaded. It's slow. There it goes. Yeah, look at that. All of our stuff is uploaded. Cool beans. That's it. Your script is in there. Your profiles are in there. The profiles, if you noted, they were not scoped to anything, which is what you want to make sure. Don't do that. Yeah, so that's awesome, right? So this is a summary of the scripts that I've added to my demo. Okay, so note that there are two, Sonoma and Ventura, but they're named basically the same otherwise. You will want to have a script for every operating system that you're supporting. So if you support Sonoma, Ventura, Big Sur, you want 3. If you're only supporting Sonoma, you probably just need 1. That's really important because some checks and fixes are only going to work for that OS. There's a whole lot of overlap between Sonoma and Ventura. Like, I'd say probably 80 to 90% of it is overlapping. But where they don't overlap is where you'll get failures for checking and fixing. So you want to make sure that you have one per OS. And we have parameters. So these were automatically filled in. Actually, I could probably... This is where I could do a live demo. I'm going to open up my test Jamf Cloud instance, my super secret. Yeah, there we go. All right. You can see there's nothing in here. So I'm going to go to computer management. And I'm going to go to extensions. Let's see. Script. Takes forever. There we go. So Sonoma. You can see my parameters are defined. They were defined automatically. I didn't have to do anything. Those are in those XML files. You can see that it also added, well, weirdly enough, it added a category, but it doesn't add information or notes. You can change that if you wanted to in the XML files. And you can see how long the script is because it's still loading. It's still loading. It's still loading. There we go. It is long. It is a big, big script. And one thing to note, this is 8,900 lines. One thing to note, I don't know if everybody caught it, that's a bash script or Z shell. It's just a Z shell script because you don't need Python. You don't need any other thing. Z shell's built into Mac OS. Why would we make you install something else to get it set up? So this is just a big old Z shell script. So you can go in there and take a look at it all you want. So we'll go back to the parameters. We have parameter 4 filled in with action flag. So we have check, which it does what it says. It's a check. That is your audit. This essentially just runs the script and goes, whoop, I'm going to check everything and then update that audit file. CFC. This is our all-in-one solution. This is check, fix, checks. Check, fix, check. It allows you to basically just remediate. So when you run the script, it will check your audit file, check your system. It'll run all the fixes, and then it'll update the audit file again. So you don't have to do, what you used to have to do is run the script twice. Now it'll just do it all at the same time. We have reset, which will reset your audit file. So again, this one, Sonoma PSU demo compliance, blah, 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 has its own audit file on the system. It will be, I think it's org.sonoma PSU 2024 demo.audit.plist. Ventura one, if you guessed it, has Ventura in it. So when you hit reset, it just resets the audit file for this script. Reset all will reset all of your audit files. So if you have a system, say, that upgraded from Ventura to Sonoma, you might still have that Ventura audit on there, and the Sonoma one's getting dropped down. You might just want to be like, just reset the whole thing. Or it's really good if you're testing, honestly. The additional flags, not too much to get into there. These are new, but they are really useful if you don't want your logs and your Jamf logs like all filled up with a whole bunch of stuff that you'll see later. Quiet 1 will show errors only. Quiet 2, I believe, shows errors and I think like the remediations that were run. I can't remember exactly offhand. I believe it's in the wiki. If not, we will upload it. And we know that the wiki needs help. Hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. All right. Where am I at? Here we are, compliance scripts. I'm going to go back to this because, again, live demos are bad sometimes. Okay, so let's look at some more of that. So we're going to go into our configuration profile. So we're going to go into the login window, and you'll see that it's an application and custom settings, but you see that You could try to see that our text is there on this screen. You'll note that it is using the upload at the application custom settings. But if we go into one like the firewall, that's using the GUI. Now it has some unknown keys, but that is using the GUI because the Jamf configuration profiles UI knows some of this. And then we'll go into another one, the submit diag info is the same thing. So you can go into Jamf and manually check the boxes and stuff if you want, if you know what those settings are. You know, if you really want to use the UI, you can go into like, you know, the security settings and check the box, and it'll do the same exact thing that some of these will do. If you want to see what actually is getting set, this might be a better way to do it using those custom plist files that get uploaded. It kind of depends on what you prefer. In my organization, we have a lot of the custom plist, but we also use the Jamf UI because it's just stuff that was brought in from years ago, and we don't feel like ripping it all out and putting it back in. We are just now getting to breaking apart some of those more monolithic profiles that we've had to get them a little more granular. So it all depends on, again, where you are and what your organization would decide you want to do, or what you want to do. So we also uploaded some extension attributes, those 4 that we talked about. Right? You can see them in there. There's 4 of them. We're going to just take a look at one in here during the video because that's what I did. This is for exemptions. This just will actually read the audit file for anything that has exempt true, or excuse me, read the exemptions for anything that has true, and it will add them to this extension attribute. We'll see that later. So if you missed the names, those are the names. Oh, God. It's hard to read for everybody else, right? Too. Okay, I'm not blind. That's fine. If we could turn off the front row light or something, thank you. But they are, you notice they are all named compliance dash, and then you have exemptions, which is showing your exemptions. We have failed result list, which will show a list of the results that are failed. So when I say the list, it'll say, you know, OS login banner. It basically says that that one failed. You have failed results count, which shows you literally a numeric value of how many of those counts were failed. And then you have version, which actually shows you your audit version. And by version, let me rephrase, that is the audit you're running. So Sonoma, CIS Level 2, PSU 2024 in our case. All right. So we've got everything in. Now we want to actually do stuff. We've uploaded everything. All this build up. We have 28 minutes left, and we want to do groups and policies and then actually get something working, right? Excuse me. Oh, yes. That's fine. Go. That's better. Ooh. Ooh. Thank you very much. Is that good for everybody? Don't fall asleep. This works great. Thank you so much. We're going to create some groups. We have our operating systems group. So if you know Jamf, right, you know how to create an operating system group. But what I'm making sure to point out here is that if you're testing Sequoia, which you should be, just make sure you do this, the bottom one, operating system version less than 15. Because if you do greater than or equal to 14, you're going to get your Sequoia systems. Fun fact, the mSCP does work on Sequoia right now and does a pretty darn good job. We're going to need a remediation group. So remediation group is essentially what group of computers do we want to run our checks, fixes, and checks on, right? This is for remediating all the issues. So I'm going to use one of those extension attributes that we've uploaded, which is the failed results count. I'm going to say anything with more than 0, so if there's 1 or higher, go into this group. So all of our groups are created. We're going to create our first policy now. So we want to make an audit policy. This is just going to run on the systems to run the audit on the system and then add that info to Jamf using our extension attributes. So let's create a new policy. We're going to call this one mSCP audit. I like getting into the habit of naming everything that uses the mSCP to mSCP whatever. And I'm denoting that this is for Sonoma. I don't know if you caught that back there. I'll show a summary afterward. We're using a recurring check-in, and in our case, we're going to do every day, but you can limit it to however you want. I'm also adding a custom trigger, mSCP-audit. Again, using the mSCP notation in there that I put. I'm going to configure a script, and in this case, this is for Sonoma, so we're going to add our Sonoma script. And since we want to audit, we're not fixing anything, we're just checking, we're going to add the flag for check, -- check. And with this, we want to get a recon, because what's going to happen is every time we check it, we want to get that inventory updated for what is broken. And for scoping, since we said this is for Sonoma, we're scoping it to that Sonoma group that we created. So I'll pause it there for a second if anybody needs a quick right shot, whatever. Again, these slides will be shared, of course, and I will put, they're going to be on my Git, so, and this video will be uploaded. But you can see the title I gave it. You'll want to do this for every OS that you support. So again, mSCP audit, Sonoma or Ventura, and then your script name based on whatever it is. The last three things are quite important, though. The parameter check, right? And then the maintenance, you definitely want to update inventory with this, because if you don't, you're just running audits on your computers, but you're not telling Jamf that that information's updated. And this is what mine would look like. I have my Sonoma one and my Ventura one. Note that they both have the same trigger, right? I don't want to have multiple triggers for this. I want to have everything run at the same trigger, but it's going to only run on the OS that is scoped. Right, so if my Ventura machine runs mSCP audit trigger, it's just going to run on the Ventura one. It's not going to run the Sonoma one. Cool. Alrighty. We're going to make another policy. So what we want to do this time is make our check and fix, essentially. So again, we're going to call this mSCP something. So it'll be check and fix. And I'm going to, again, say this is for Sonoma. Note that that's a hint that I'm giving you. We're going to give this a custom trigger only, mSCP fix. There's no other trigger, just the trigger, or just the custom trigger. We're going to make this ongoing, and we're going to scope it again to our Sonoma. This time, this is our actual remediation, so we're going to call this CFC, check, fix, checks. And then we scope this to Sonoma, since that's the machines we said we're going to use it for. There we go. Save it. And there we go. So now this is a summary for Sonoma. You're going to want to do this again per OS. Again, the big one to note is the trigger is just a custom trigger. It's only mSCP fix. We're not doing any recurring triggers or anything. And the other thing to note, what am I missing in here? Recon. There's no inventory update there. We'll get to it. All right, so there's my policies for each OS again. You can see it says mSCP fix is the only trigger. But again, if I run mSCP fix and I'm on Sonoma, it'll only run Sonoma, and the other one will only run on Ventura. All righty. Excuse me. We're going to make another policy, because we like policies. But this is how it works. This is how I like doing it, and I think it actually works really well. And I'll cover why this is, I think, the best way to do this. So I'm going to create one more policy here. And I'm going to call this mSCP remediation daily, or whatever your trigger would be. But I'm going to say daily. This will go in a recurring check-in once every day. And the only thing we're going to run now is we're going to execute a command using the files and processes. And we're just going to say run the Jamf policy event mSCP fix. So whatever runs this policy is just going to run that trigger that we just created before. And now we're going to add a recon. So what do we scope this to? We need to scope this to the machines that need remediation, so mSCP remediation needed. So again, our summary, you only need one of these. This is our remediation control policy. So note that it is doing an inventory update, because that's quite important here, and it's only executing this policy event mSCP fix. So there we go. There's our summary of remediation control. How this works. Computer goes into the mSCP remediation needed group, because it has more than 0 items found in the extension attribute. Every day at a check-in, it will run mSCP fix trigger. Based on whatever OS that is, it will then run one of the fixes, the check-in fix, or excuse me, the CFC commands that we made. And then, and only after it ran that, it will update an inventory, which will mean that it will fall out of the remediation group and will no longer run again. So we're going to roll initiative. I don't want everybody to roll die, please. But this is a demo. So this might be a little, I'm going to try to explain this as best I can, but I wanted to do the way I did because I want to show everybody you can actually run the script locally as well if you're interested. So I have a Sonoma machine here. I'm telling it to just run the demo compliant, the compliance script that I have. I'm literally just running that script with sudo. That's all I'm doing right now. It's going to ask me for a password. This computer has no profiles, and it is enrolled. But when I run it, I get this menu. If you run it locally without any flags, this is the menu you get. It will ask you to view a compliance report, run a compliance scan, or remediate, or exit. Now, this thing has no profiles on it. It has not run the script at all. But you can see it is 34.26% compliant. That's out of the box. That's pretty good, right? Thanks, Apple. Now, where did it get this information? Well, this machine did run an audit. So you note that the first one says view last compliance report. If I ran that on a machine that is just brand new, that literally didn't have anything at all run on it, it would say, please run compliance scan first. So you would run option 2. Or you run an audit from your Jamf system. So if you run that -- fix policy from Jamf, it will also do that. All this is doing is basically reading from that audit file that it gets created, the library preferences org.baseline_name.audit.plist. All right? Yeah, we're going to do Ventura too, because I'm feeling saucy. You can see same exact thing here. Again, just showing you what it looks like for both OSs. 33.33% compliant. Not bad for, again, fresh out of the box. So, right now you can see that we've assigned all of our profiles to all computers. Don't do this. This is just for a demo. Do however you want to do it. Do it a little smarter than this, but don't. But I just did this for the demo. Note that every one of them is not assigned to all computers. There are some that are Sonoma only, some that are Ventura only, and there are some that are missing, like File Vault is not in here because I don't feel like File Vault encrypting any of my test devices that I'm doing for a demo. But you can combine profiles if you don't like having 33 profiles for both. This is for both 2 OSs, though, so that's not too bad, I guess. And then, of course, like I said, there are some overlaps, so most of these would overlap. So going back to Ventura, we have them scoped. I'm going to load up the profiles for Ventura, and boom, they're all there. Everybody rejoices. We're going to refresh, and you can see that they are indeed there on that machine. So now we're going to run that check again, but we're going to do it using Jamf. So we're going to do a Jamf policy. You can see that it's running the mSCP audit Ventura very quick. I know it's really quick, sorry. I can show you the logs live too. We're going to go to this machine. Cody has now, so I have this little view here. You can see it's Cody Walsh, again, another Dimension 20 person. Has 28 failed count now. Before it was, I believe it was 69 or 70. Now he has 28 after that check. So that's without any scripts running. That is literally just running, just installing the profiles. So Apple's done a pretty good job at adding a lot more items to config profiles than so we don't have to run as many things in the script, which is great. So let's see this in reverse. Just, see what it looks like. So you can see bad news up there has 71. Failed result count. Okay. Oh, yeah. Past John is highlighting that for you. All right, we're going to log into that Sonoma machine again. So this machine was off when we scoped those policies. So now it's on. We just scoped those profiles. We're going to load it up. Virtual Buddy's going to hang because that's what it does. And now they're there. But it didn't update. But you can see that they are installed, of course. So we're going to go back to that system and run a policy, and you can see that it, again, is running the audit for Sonoma, gives us a whole bunch of output, and then, again, the reverse look, just to show you that you can do it locally. If you run that script locally, you can do it. It now says 76.85% compliant. So that machine now is, that audit was updated because I ran it. So this is that machine there. You can see the failed result list, the count, the policy logs. It's a lot of logs. This is where the quiet flags come in handy. So So I'm going to play that again because that's really quick, right? So I'm going to play it one more time for you if you want to see it. Failed result list, compliance version, count, and then our policy logs that show you what was done, what failed, what passed, what did it. Again, when you're doing your first setup and when you're debugging, you probably should keep your logs on just to keep this. It also all logs locally to the endpoint. There is a log that it will write to, so you can also check that. So before, those two computers are up there. You can see 71 and 69. And after, with just configuration profiles, 25 and 28. There you go. Not bad. Not bad for not running a script, right? So speaking of the script, now I've disabled the remediation policy while I was doing this testing because I wanted to, do a demo, of course. Let's go in there and activate it. So I'm going to take the remediation policy that we created. I'm going to edit and activate it. We're also going to remind ourselves, look, it's only running on the one that has remediation needed, which is anything that has the remediation count more than 0, which is both of those computers. Okay. So back in Sonoma, now the remediation's active. I'm running a policy. You can see that it's mSCP remediation daily. Refresh after it ran. Now we only have 2 left. Fastest compliance you've ever seen in 2 seconds there. In reality, it probably took about a minute and a half, I think. But it's silent to the user, right? The user doesn't know what's happening. Look at that, 2 left. System settings, file vault enforce, system settings, wake, network access disable. What are these 2, right? One is file vault. I just told you we're not enforcing file vault on this machine because it's a virtual machine. I don't want to do that. I know that. I'm the system administrator. I don't want to enforce file vault, so I want to get rid of that. The other one there is the wake on LAN. I don't know why wake on LAN shows this flagged for virtual buddy. It just does. I've tried to figure out what the heck is causing it. I'm not sure. I guess it's just because it's a virtual machine. But I go in my head, I'm like, well, I'm the system administrator. I'm the one running this. I don't want these 2 to show up for my virtual machines. Well, how do I get them to stop running? Because this is going to run a check, fix, check every single time, every day, I should say, it's going to run. And it doesn't have to because I already know about these. How do I tell it to go, ignore these 2? So you remember when we uploaded, and we got that prompt that says you have to upload that custom JSON schema? And we looked at that JSON file. And I told you, hey, this is your exclusions. We'll get into that. Well, guess what? We're getting into it. So here's how that works. We're going to go into JCE again. We're going to open our project folder. This is if you need to find it. It's in the build folder, because all your builds are in there. It's in whatever baseline you are, and it's in the Jamf Pro folder. And there's that one JSON file, that thing. So we're going to go to another configuration profile. We're going to add a new one, and we're going to call this mSCP virtual machines, or whatever, virtual machine exemptions. We're going to go to application and custom settings and upload that JSON schema. So we're going to know where that is. We're going to hit the upload button. And we're going to give it a preference domain of our audit file, essentially. So, and now we're going to go find those 2 that we want to exclude. So we're going to go to file vault enforce. Did it pause? Oh, it did. How'd that happen? Yeah, apparently. My computer is frozen. Wow. So my computer crashed, I guess. My M1 Mac Pro here. Cool. Anybody have tech support? Yeah. Well, this was recorded. This was recorded too. All right. Well, I'm rebooting. Whew.
Well, you always do live demos, John.
Apparently, the demo gods were not pleased. Seriously. I'll do a PRAM reset. Hold on. Glad I have 10 minutes left. Oh, I know. Keynote's going to open back up. Please, thank you. Okay, let's see. Hey, all right. Yay! Woo! Where was I? All right. Going to do that again. Open a project folder. Go to the build folder. Go to our project that we built and get that uploaded there from the Jamf Pro folder. There's the JSON. We saw this already. Great. All right. This is where it crashed. Let's see if it crashes again. I'm going to have this up there so you can see it. So I'm going to call this mSCP PSU 2024 Virtual Machine Exemptions. External applications under your custom schema, and then upload the JSON file. I'm going to pause right there. You can see in the bottom there it says preference domain properties, and then you see org.psu 2024 demo.audit.plist. That's our preference domain. So we're just going to put it up there in our preference domain. Boom. And we're going to find those two rules that we totally remember, file vault and the wake on LAN. So I'm going to say configured, and I'm saying exempt, true, and I'm giving a reason. For me, it's because it just says virtual machine. And then I'm going to find that other one, configure it, set it to true, and give the same reason, virtual machine. Now I'm going to scope it to the machines I want to scope it to, which was, in my case, both of them. We hit save. They're now scoped. Neat. So now we're going to run the fix on our Sonoma machine. So you can see it's running the check and fix. I'm calling the mSCP fix trigger myself. It ran the fix. I go to check the system. What's going to happen? Nothing changed. Why didn't it change? What did I forget? Recon. Because I called the mSCP fix trigger myself. I didn't use the remediation policy because I was in a rush. So I'll go back. Okay, fine. I'll recon it. I'll type my password wrong, and then I'll recon it. We'll go back. We'll do a refresh. And look at that. We now see failed result lists and exemptions, but failed result count is 0. So one thing to note here is even though the check and fix will not run on here, those are still findings in your system. So auditors will still be like, oh, hey, you got findings. It's like, yeah, but they're excluded. All right, so it's not going to run. But you need to make sure it's documented. Those are still findings on the machine, so they still will show up, and they still will technically count against your audit if you're not excluding them. So just be, warned about that. I also want to mention one big thing about exemptions, and this is a really bright screen, cool. They are not tailoring. We've seen this a lot in the past. When you are when you're putting a baseline out, customize, tailor your baseline. Because every time you make a baseline for your organization, you are essentially tailoring your baseline. Exemptions are used for a small amount of checks and a small amount of computers. You don't do something like, well, we don't use the firewall on all of our computers, so I'm just going to exclude all the machines from the firewall check. Don't do that. That's a bad way to do it. Exemptions are not tailoring. Exemptions are exemptions. And that is the game that we just played, for the most part. I do want to mention a couple things. I do have some resources up here. I have my Git page, my blog, blah, blah, blah. But that last one down there, there is the Slack channel, so as I mentioned. But the last one here, Apple has compliance tutorials. And they talk about the mSCP in there. And if you go in there, they literally go over how to get it, how to run it, how to deploy it, all command line, no JCE stuff, but all command line. Okay. Now, this just got updated yesterday. There's a chapter 3 here. Managing your compliance strategy. They will now show you how to essentially set up the mSCP on a system using a launch daemon. If you don't have, say, an MDM that is capable of, having a ginormous script run into, and if you don't have a way to get that stuff out there, they show you how to create a launch daemon, run the policies on that, and have it set automatically run. So you don't even need, an MDM if you don't need to. You should totally have an MDM though. And with that, oh, don't do it again. Oh, Keynote. Oh, Keynote. This is why I don't use Keynote, everyone. Holy cow, Keynote. It's crashed on me like twice this entire time. All right. Post-game discussion. There we go. Now we have Q&A. Where's the box? There it is. Please pass the box.
Apologies if I missed this, but where do you get the extension attribute scripts? I'm a non-Jamf admin, so
That's fine.
are those available?
So when the project runs in JCE, it will create them and it puts it in the so if you're in the build folder, there's a Jamf Pro folder in there, and then in there you'll see them all, the scripts.
Thank you.
No problem.
So, question, just not that we ran into this trouble or something, but if you push it out, is there like an undo, like go back to where you started without reformatting your machine?
That is a good
Option.
question, and one that we do get asked. There is no undo button. The undo button is to unscope and to kind of just revert the changes manually. There's been a lot of internal discussion about whether or not to create an undo. It's a little hard because of different states of the OS and what the settings might have to be. So right now, the best way to do it is to just wipe, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay.
Questions all over the place. 4 minutes.
Could you remind me when you're doing the configuration profiles scoping, like what does that get scoped to? Is that just needs remediation or?
So for configuration profiles, just
Yes.
in general. So you would want to scope it to your computers based on OS, right? So most of the configuration profiles are across OS version. Some of them you might want to manually do. So like Safari settings, there's certain Safari settings that only work in Sonoma that don't work in Ventura. So you don't want to, if you deliver them, it's not going to hurt anything, but they just won't get, checked or anything. So that is kind of based on an organizational decision. So we do all computers in our organization. We do all managed clients, and we exclude first. So we do all, but we exclude, right? Some orgs just do this OS specifically. So that's kind of based on what you want to do and based on what the check is,
Got
right?
it.
So if you want to exclude File Vault from your machines, that's going to be something you're going to have to determine internally.
Awesome. Thank
Yep.
you.
There was a question over here. And then there's one in the back.
I'm curious, so with there being revisions to the particular OS releases throughout, periodically, how do you handle typically updating like configuration profiles, scripts, all of that when those revisions come out? Both
Test.
testing, but
test.
how often do you see yourself doing that?
So I will often test a new compliance script every point release of an OS and every time the mSCP releases a fix or there's a change. And also, unfortunately, I have to also test every time the CIS benchmark changes. So CIS 1.1 just came out for Sonoma, which means that the mSCP is going to rev soon, which means I have to test again. And I'm also testing for Sequoia. So it's literally just how often do I test this? It's essentially every time something changes. Every OS, every mSCP release, every CIS release. And then the other one is how do you, and to go more on that is if you update an OS, so if you go from Ventura to Sonoma, you'll want to run a reset on your compliance check. So you do the reset flag. So you have to figure out some way to tell that this computer updated from Ventura to Sonoma. Now I need to reset it and rerun my automation checks. It's not that hard because because Jamf has, Jamf will update the OS there. And from Ventura to Sonoma, it's very easy. Or no, excuse me, from what was before Ventura? Monterey. Monterey to Ventura was very easy because system settings changed, right? It was system preferences, I think, before. We changed the whole name. It's a little harder now because that didn't change. So essentially, whenever you upgrade, you kind of just want to always run a reset and just have it run again. Yep. I think there's a question here, and then there's some in the back. We have 24 seconds.
I think I already know the answer.
We'll talk afterward.
between, for the JCE, CIS 1, CIS 2, CIS 2 isn't like cumulative rule set, right? They're separate sets of restrictions between those two?
1 and 2?
Yeah.
2 includes all the rules from 1 and then more.
Sweet. I'm
Yeah.
pretty lazy and I
There you
haven't
go.
started.
We have no time left, but please get feedback. I will talk to everybody afterward. What I will say is, everybody roll a die. If you get a natural 20, raise your hand. 1, 2. Come and get a special sticker if you get a natural 20. Thank you, everyone. Yes.